All right, we got a good friend of the show, Chris Czynszak here. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
Good. You are you getting crazy, getting ready for Rockin' Pod?
That's quite an understatement. Yeah, pretty much.
Dude, it's pretty cool. It's like one of our dreams. I was like reading what's going on. It'd be one of our dreams when we're kids, like if you were 16 or 15, what you would do.
Right. Yeah, it's I grew up a big Kiss fan, so their whole ethos was create the band you want to see on stage. So I try to kind of create the event that I would want to attend.
And speaking of Kiss, so you're gonna show Exposed, which is such a masterpiece with Don Jameson and Craig Gass narrating. What's that gonna be about? It's huge.
Yeah, we did something similar last year with Kiss Meets the Phantom. It's this little movie theater called Full Moon Cineplex, and it's like an old school '80s just strip mall movie theater. And they usually show like Nightmare on Elm Street, or they rerun Poltergeist or something. And but it's just a perfect venue for something like this. And we did it last year with Phantom and had them doing like the Mystery Science Theater type of commentary over the top of it, and everyone loved it, so they wanted to do it again. And I was like, well, let's do something else that's Kiss related. So we picked Exposed this time.
Incredible. Remember when Paul
Yeah,
answered the door when the kid he had all the girls? That was just such an incredible scene when you're young. Like, I don't want
yeah,
to do math. I want to be Paul Stanley.
yeah. I must have been about 11 or 12 when that came out, and I remember thinking it was all legit, it was all real, they all lived together. Yeah, they had
Yeah,
me fooled.
yeah. Just so I love and you love I love Kiss almost more without makeup. You're a fan of the
Mhm.
non-makeup eras as well, right?
Yeah, they were, they were supporting Crazy Nights when I got into them, and I was into a lot of the other, glam rock bands of the time, and I knew about Kiss, I knew about the makeup and everything, but I never really paid attention to them. And then they started getting a lot of play on Dial MTV with like Reason to Live and Turn on the
Yeah.
Night, and it kind of hooked me. And then my brother he was a fan of the original band, so between that and getting his copy of vinyl of live on vinyl, it was easy to kind of fall in love with the band.
Yeah. You think they'll ever do a tour without the makeup?
Nah, there's not enough money in it for him. I mean, I would go see it in a second, but yeah,
Yeah.
the masses go with their dollars, and yeah, they didn't make a ton of money during the non-makeup year, even though for me it was magical. I loved all those years.
Yeah. Did you buy the I bought the Alive 2, the reissue, but did you buy the Creatures box set?
Mm-hmm.
Which is
Yep, I splurged on the super deluxe version of it. Yeah,
I waited too long because those things go up, man. It's crazy.
yeah, I got it for like $100 off, I think,
Right.
through Amazon. And when it was 300, I was like, I can't spend $300 on this thing. But then they started discounting it. Once they got it down to a certain point, I was like, all right, I'll just pull the trigger, because that album means a lot to me, and it's worth to me. It was worth every dime. I love all the cool stuff that came inside of it.
Yeah. I keep contemplating. I waited too long. You look like Ace right now. Something's going
Uh
on. Can you
oh, what's going
can you
on with my
see?
connection here? Yeah, I see it too.
It's kind of cool though, but
Nope, there I am.
all right. Um what do you call it? How about Peter and Ace showing up to the cruise show for John 5?
Yeah, I expected Peter to be there, because I know he's anytime John plays New Jersey, he tends to show up at the shows. So I
Okay.
get the feeling they're pretty close. But yeah, it was cool to see Ace there and see those
Yeah.
guys take
Yeah.
photos. Although one of the photos that I saw that came out from backstage shows them posing together, and it's a great picture. But in the background, it looks like there's a dildo standing up on the table behind them.
Oh, I didn't even see, but I saw Vince Neil's case. It looks like Vince Neil's road case, so that would make sense.
I don't know what
Yeah.
Vince is into these
Yeah,
days, but
yeah.
yeah, that
I
was a
don't.
little
It'd
surprising.
be easier to say what Vince isn't into. Um, so Keel Fest too is part of in the middle, and you got Steeler playing. I was
Yeah,
floored. Oh
yeah,
my
yeah. No,
god.
no Ingve, of course, but yeah, but Mitch Perry, who's
Oh
more than
yeah.
fits the bill for that show. And yeah, Ron was actually I think looking to do it in Vegas initially, and then when I announced Rockin' Pod for the springtime in Nashville, he was just like, well, it makes sense to connect it to Rockin' Pod, and make sort of an event out of it. So yeah, we're real honored that he wants to do this as part of our thing.
Little cold day in hell at the Rockin' Pod.
Yeah, oh, I love that record. That first record of theirs was just amazing.
So amazing. I remember when it came out, like some Bob Perotti, my neighbor, just had it, my guitar player at the time, and just it looked like the Van Halen record, and it just tore your head off.
I never put that connection together. It does kind of model itself after the Van
Oh, it
Halen
does.
record.
Yeah,
Yeah, I never even noticed that
I
for
mean,
some
we
reason.
sat in the room for hours upon hours, and then there's a solo, like basically his version of Eruption. Definitely.
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess that it does follow that template, doesn't it?
Yeah. And a week after I got it, I went to see Ted Nugent in an amusement park, Great Adventure in New Jersey, because I wasn't allowed to go to concerts when I was that young, but you could go to the
Mhm.
amusement park. And Alcatraz opened up, and the guy from the Steeler record was playing guitar for him, so it ripped my head off.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So I love Tyson Leslie. Tyson Leslie's kind of the first night. What? Tell me about Rare Hair and what that's about, man.
Yeah, so I've been friends with Tyson for several years, and last year he helped put together a Rare Hair show before, I guess, 2021, the Rare Hair show for the pre-party that year, and it was just, I mean, he does these all throughout the year, and it was an incredible night. We had Billy Sheehan and Greg Bissonette got up together and did some David Lee Roth stuff, and Rick and Ron did some Steeler stuff. There, Roy Cathy, who's in the fifth, who's playing, but also was in Cold Sweat. He got up and did Valley of the Kings by Blue Murder. I mean, it was just, there was so many cool cover songs done by guests of the expo. And we were like, well, we have to do it again this time. So he's putting that together again. It's at a different venue this time. It's called Eastside Bowl, and it's on St. Patrick's Day, so it should be a pretty wild one.
Awesome. What was your favorite? What was your favorite one or two moments of last year's Rockin' Pod? What was your favorite things that occurred?
Well, I mean, that was definitely a highlight because I think the club told me we were like 30 people under max capacity, so that was really cool. And
Yeah.
the expo was bigger than ever, and I guess to me, the panel we did with the MTV guys with Mark Goodman, Ricky Rackman, and Matt Penfield was a lot of fun because it was on the actual week of the 40th anniversary of MTV, which was cool.
Oh, that's cool.
And then but now we had a great women in rock panel. We had I don't know. There were so many things. Carmine and Vinny coming, the drumming brothers. That was awesome. Yeah, just so many highlights. But to me, the biggest highlight is always just seeing everybody have a good time.
Yeah.
I feel it's a success if people have fun, they have smiles on their faces, and they want to come back the next year. That makes it a success for me.
That's awesome. And Nashville is really becoming, I grew up basically on the Sunset Strip from 88 after high school on. It's becoming, after the Sunset Strip, it kind of moved to Arizona. Now it's kind of, obviously a big whole thing in Vegas, but Nashville really is a big place for a lot of guys that are going there.
Yeah, I mean it's I guess Michael Wagner kind of led the charge in the 90s when he moved out here, and yeah, he likes to joke. He's like, I moved to Nashville and everyone in LA followed me because so many guys moved out that way. And for me, it's one of the highlights we're going to have this year is we're going to do a panel on the Decline 2 movie because we have, a few people that were in the film.
Yeah.
And that movie means a lot to me because I grew up here in Nashville dreaming that I could come out to the Sunset Strip and be part of that scene. I never would have believed that we'd have so many of these guys living here now. So it's that you can stay connected to the business. All the business stuff is out here, but also it's a little less crazy than LA. We're starting to compete though, but yeah, it's more of a small town vibe, but you can still get all your work done.
Yeah. That Decline movie, because I grew up in suburban New Jersey when it came out, it's just, right. It just,
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah, I just wanted to go to LA so bad because I would watch it on repeat and just be like, oh, that looks like so much fun. Whereas I was 12, not like I could have gotten in anywhere.
But I moved out and I couldn't get in all the clubs. I was 18, and you had to be 21. But we grew up with parents going to work, shoveling snow. I don't know, you know what I mean? And then it just seemed like nobody had jobs out there. It just seemed like a free for all, which is what it was.
Yeah, well, yeah. Then you find out more over the years about like the guys in Poison living, in a warehouse with no power and begging for scraps, and groupies pretty much keeping those guys alive because that's the only time they ate. Yeah, the amount of work that those bands put in and the amount of time, you can goof on the image all you want, but those are some of the hardest working people that show business has ever seen, in my opinion.
It's so true. It really is true. And that's what separated bands out there, the workers from the non-workers. My band almost moved. This guy, Johnny Dallas, he was a stunt man, and he invested in Tough, Poison. And he almost invested in my band, Blackboard Jungle. And he was going to move us in where Poison had lived. And we went down, and it was like past Pico, just the worst area in the world. And it was just no windows, just the worst where they lived. It was incredible. I mean, the most depressing place ever.
That means basically a warehouse, wasn't it?
it wasn't even a warehouse. You're almost giving it too much credit. It was just horrible. It was like just a bad rehearsal room with no windows, but just a part of a building. Yeah, I guess you could
Mm.
call it a warehouse, but more depressing. I think warehouse would have been easier.
Yeah, and Rick Fox has told me about Steelers digs that when they were coming up, it was a similar situation. It was just, they were competing with cockroaches for space, and he said that they would joke and call it the Steeler Mansion, but you'd walk in and you'd be like, "You guys are homeless. What are you doing?"
Yeah.
It was brutal.
When I was in high school, one of the first people I met, I went back to the St. James, and Rick Fox was one of the first people I met. He was just sitting like a god in a chair with everybody talking around him. It was this lady, D. Holland, was a promoter. I think he lived with. It was wild.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you talk to Rick, he'll regale you with stories for hours. I call him the Forrest Gump of rock and roll, because I mean he was part of the '70s scene and the with Kiss and the Ramones and that whole CBGB scene, and then he comes to LA and he's part of the LA scene, right? It's kind of amazing that he was able to frequent in both of those kind of mega scenes that rock had.
It hit me the other day. I saw an old ad because I was friends with Frank Starr. I met Rick, and I didn't realize those guys really were there when Crew was doing it. They went because I moved right after Guns N' Roses, so that those guys were really there for Motley Crue. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think he knew Nikki and Blackie when they were doing like the circus thing. I think he was around for that.
Yeah, that Starwood, that really cool era of glam.
Yeah. Yeah,
Who was
I love the history of that whole scene. It's pretty amazing stuff.
who was your favorite Sunset Strip band at that time?
I mean, I guess I would have to go with Poison. They kind of opened the door for me to be a giant fan of hard rock and glam rock. But yeah, many that came along with them. But yeah, Poison would probably be the one. They kind of put that whole scene on the map for me. So I mean, the first time I watched Decline was because I heard Poison was in the movie, but then I got turned on to so many other bands through watching that movie.
Yeah, yeah. Poison was just like sensory overload, man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I don't did you see Cry Tough? Because a lot of people, yeah, got hit by Talk Dirty to Me, but Cry Tough was on Headbangers Ball, first, and just
Yeah.
seeing that was amazing.
No, I saw it was when Talk Dirty to Me came out was the first time I saw him, and it was a kid at school told me about it, and then I saw the video like that day after school, and then I remember like a few weeks later, the MTV started putting Cry Tough in the higher rotation, and that's when I saw that. I thought it was the single that came out after Talk Dirty to Me at the time.
I get that. I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the perfect glam band. I think Poison just was the pinnacle. Probably the last one, really. I mean, you could say Guns N' Roses, but glam, that
Yeah.
post Van Halen, Motley Crue, Bleach Blonde singer, they were the last really great one to me.
Yeah, it was a party wrapped up in everything, and it made sense that I would become a diehard Kiss fan after getting into Poison, because Poison modeled a lot of what they did after Kiss. Just if you're going to do it, overdo it. Sing about partying and groupies and everything, and then so of course transitioning into Kiss was a big thing, easy transition for me.
Yeah. I want to ask someone in the pod world, why do you think Motley Crue doesn't have a presence? And I get in a sense, I feel like I know, and I'm a huge fan. Like, people aren't into the fandom the same way they are as Kiss, but Crue was my world growing up. But there's no three sides of the coin to, just podcast just for Crue. What do you think that is? Why people don't care that much?
I really don't know, and it's surprising because as big as they've been for as long as they've been, you would think that there would be an audience for it. I mean, I would listen to an all Motley Crue podcast if they were doing like deep dives into like Crue people, people that were part of the band's management and all that. There's certainly not a lack of people to talk to. So I don't know. Maybe it's a great idea. Maybe you should start one.
Maybe I should. I bought a picture of them from their original photographer. I forget his name. Don was of them in a mall. He took them to a mall for their first photo shoot, and he had all these great pictures of them in the studio. But it's them in a mall next to Florsheim shoes. And I have it in my room. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, so Michael Wagner lives out here, and he mixed the original version of Too Fast for Love when in the early days, and he was he was doing a sale at his studio, and which is behind his house, because he was retiring, and we went over there, and we had been there several times before, and of course there's still some stuff up on the walls like the original Leather Records pressing that's signed by Mick to him. And I'm like, you're selling that, right? And he's like, hell no, I'm not selling that. But he's got some amazing stuff from, trinkets from those early days of Motley Crue.
Yeah, yeah. When you got stuff the band might not have, that's when it's really cool.
Yeah. And he actually did give us what my co-host got. It was like a big crate filled with CDs, cassettes, and videotapes from his career, and we have to transfer them all. But there's no telling what gold we have on those things. We need to dive into that soon.
I really want to see some pictures of the making of Too Fast for Love, and I know the person that sold me the picture has some pictures. That would be amazing to see, because it's still a 70s vibe. That's what I love about early Crue. It's the 70s still. You see the wood paneling in the back, the schnitzes and everything.
Yeah, and the original manager, Alan Kaufman, has always been an intriguing character to me, because it sounds like he believed in the band, but he also had quite a few issues mentally because of like PTSD and stuff. And I've heard some stories about him. That would be an interview that would be interesting to get. I don't even know if he's still alive, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So, dude, I was just looking at this, and the amount of work you put into this thing is insane to make something like this work. It's just got to be insane, and I doubt that you're buying a mansion off this.
Oh no. I'll be happy to buy a cup of coffee, but no, but I don't do it for the money. I do it because I'm trying to, give a spotlight to, the music podcasters, because that's what I do. And then also shine a light on these celebrities, and, let them get the, promote their stuff to the podcast, also to the fans that come to meet them and get their stuff signed. And mainstream media is not given a lot of coverage to, especially to new projects that these artists do. And but there's also several newer artists that are part of this bill. So it's kind of it's a celebration of the past, the present, and the future of rock and roll in general. And also I bring in these famous people because I want to meet them, but also it's bait to get people to come in the door and get turned on to all these awesome shows that are coming here and, doing what we do.
Yeah. That's why I was like looking at the ticket prices, and they're amazing, mm-hmm. That you've almost got to have a lot of risk on your shoulders. Like you could get, there's a lot for what you're putting on for the minimal amount you're charging. It's crazy.
Yeah. I probably should charge more, but I try to keep it affordable. It's just like, people are paying $1,200 for a meet and greet with a band for 30 seconds. And I'm like, let me try to do something that cuts Ticketmaster out of the equation and, keeps things low cost for everybody, and everybody has a good time. I try to keep it affordable, but yeah, it is a risk every year. I feel like a high wire act every year when I put this thing on.
Yeah, it is. It's something when you have something special that you have to put on every year. I do a reunion with my band Blackboard Jungle once a year in LA, and you're right, it's a high wire act of just pulling it off, and it's a lot of fun when it's over.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sunday night that weekend is that's going to be my favorite time of the weekend, just because I survived it,
Yeah. It's just so cool, and what a cool time, and what a cool celebration, man, of this music in this era.
Yeah, and everybody just it feels like with the podcasters, we have some shows that have been every year since the beginning, when we had very humble roots, and then but we have new shows every year that come on, so it's like our family gets bigger every year. And then speaking of family, with a lot of the artists, a lot of these guys are friends with each other, and it's a chance for them to reconnect and catch up after a lot of years of between the pandemic and also road gigs. So it's just a big fun weekend. A lot of hugging and a lot of smiling happens on this one.
And if someone wanted to come out and decide, and now it's not too late. I mean, they're going to get in everything. They can get probably not crazy expensive hotels, and it's not that bad. Just a good time, right?
Yeah, it's pretty affordable. And I mean, like our two higher priced VIPs, those sold out pretty quick, but the lowest ones still available. Plenty of GA tickets, and you can kind of pick and choose which events you want to do. We have stuff going on each night of the weekend. So and all the tickets for every event are incredibly reasonable. So yeah, you can pick and choose and do it pretty cheaply.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. What event are you really looking forward to this year? What's something that you're super psyched? What shakes the tree?
Well, I mean, the expo for me that's really my thing. That's my hard day of work, because that's me and my team. Really, that's the centerpiece of the weekend, is the expo, with the panels, the live interviews, the signing sessions, all the vinyl and memorabilia vendors. That, to me, that's the biggest deal to me for the weekend. But as far as just fun, I mean, I'm looking forward to the movie screening. I just think
Right?
that's going to be
Oh
a
my
fun way to
God.
kick back and just laugh for a couple hours,
And then it's done after that.
Yeah, then that night we've got the Punchlines and Backlines comedy show with the comedians, and then Eric Martin's going to do comedy for the first time at that, which should be pretty funny. And then he's going to do a full acoustic show to close out the weekend, so that'll be fun as well. Sunday's going to be a fun day for me.
That's awesome. Who's your favorite comedian that's not going to be at Rockin' Pod? Who's your when you watch
Hmm.
comedy? Who do you love?
Oh God, so many. Mm, for a while it was Mark Maron. He was my favorite for a long time. Not so much lately. I think he's gotten a little bit too heavy on the
Right.
politics
You're
part.
right. Like the
Yeah.
new show on HBO Max is the first time I go, I'm all right.
Yeah, I used to like where he would focus on like his own neurosis and,
Yeah. I
relationship struggle. That's
totally
great
agree with you.
stuff. But now it's like, and I do agree with him politically on a lot of stuff, but it's just, I just like, I don't want to hear about politics when I go see a stand-up comedian. But I don't know. Well, I mean, we wanted to get Jim Florentine from that metal show because we've already got Don coming. So I guess I would say Jim. I've followed
Yeah.
him for many years. I got to interview him backstage at Zany's here a few years back, and it was a great interview, and it was loaded with great stories. And then my co-host and I realized after it was over, we didn't hit record, so only we got to hear that one.
Oh my God. Yeah. The nightmare.
Yeah.
I just saw Bobby Lee, the comedian Bobby
Oh, I
Lee.
love Bobby Lee.
It was so it just so good, man. His first tour back in years, and he was nervous. It was
Yeah.
sometimes these comedians are starting to remind me of seeing bands because like Springsteen's one of my favorite artists, but I have to boycott it this year because it's just way too much. So
Yeah.
$40, you go see one of these comedians and have a great night.
Yeah. I mean, mid-sized clubs and theaters is pretty much the way I go. Like, we have the Ryman here, which was the original Grand Ole Opry. I just got done seeing Night Ranger there, and saw Anthrax a few months ago. Stuff like that's $30 a ticket. I can handle that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not paying $700 to see a stadium show. It's just, to me, I can always watch the videos on YouTube, but for me, they've priced me out of the market as a concert goer.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. What's one of your favorite newer bands coming up? There's so many cool new bands that like rock
Yeah.
bands. What are some of the newer bands you're digging?
Well, the one that I've been suggesting to people to listen to was the album of the year for last year for me on our show. I think they're from Germany. They're called the New Roses. Have you heard of
Okay.
them yet?
No, no.
Oh man. I think the album's called Sweet Poison, and it's very, it doesn't sound dated, but it does have that spirit of kind of 80s feel good rock and roll.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would highly recommend you listen to them. That was the album of the year for me.
I'll play it either before or after this interview. And what do you think? There's obviously a new generation. Like, there's some kid with some great new band that looks like Stevie Rochelle. It's out there. Like,
They're coming to Rockin' Pod too.
what band is that?
They're called Stolen Prayer. They're a Nashville band.
They're kind of amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, they're great.
I was watching it like cover I Saw Red and was like floored. Like
Mhm.
the bass player looked like straight old Hollywood, like physically
Yeah.
his face. Like,
Yeah, and they were last year they were based out of Kentucky, and they recently relocated to Nashville. So they're trying to take that next big step. But yeah, they'll have a booth at Rockin' Pod this year.
and they have like a full they have a band house. I heard they're doing the full thing.
Yeah, I mean they're all in for sure. They really believe in it.
Wow. No, they sound great. I want to hear their own songs. I heard
Yeah, me too.
that hopefully by playing all, I mean, that's the way in the 50s you started with covers and then did your own. But yeah, I was really floored these past few days, just another new band that pops up. You're like, there's a whole, I don't know, third, fourth, generation that's just popping up with straight glam. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's cool seeing how they interpret it. But when my band went to Japan, I love seeing how Japanese people interpreted the Sunset Strip, and there were more Sunset Strip that, the hair was bigger. It's cool watching someone interpret that, the way that
Yeah.
we interpreted a 50s diner. Someone said our Mel's, that's not what a 50s diner looked like, but it's our interpretation of what a 50s diner looks like. And that's like these bands' interpretation of what it is, and they nail it in a lot of ways.
Well, I mean, it's a scene that celebrated just enjoying life and having fun. So it's like that's something that's always going to come back around, especially when times get hard. People are going to turn to that music because it helps you take your mind off of all the craziness that we live in these days.
Yeah. Well, they should come to Rockin' Pod and experience that. I don't know if I'm gonna make it this year because I work at that time. I work on a boat, so I'll be away. But next year I'm definitely gonna have to make this. I was just looking at this, but anybody that has the time should make it down and go. Looks like a great time.
Thanks, man. Yeah, if just go to rockinpod.com, and if you're anywhere within a drive of Nashville, come on down, hang out. It's going to be a ton of people you grew up listening to, and a lot of great folks hanging out and having fun.
All right, man. Well, stay so I could say goodbye and say goodbye to everybody.
All right, see you. Thanks.